Hey, hey, hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. Sure, kinks can be fun, but not if your kink is cheating on your partner. Today on rSpace, we learn that fantasies are indispensable to having a fulfilled life, but there has to be a happy medium. Up first, how not to reignite that spark in the bedroom. My 32 male wife, 35 female, is suggesting we open our marriage to my childhood friend. Ongoing. Original post July 17th, 2023. My wife and I have been together for 10 years, married for 8, and now have 2 small kids together. She is the love of my life, and I could not imagine myself with anyone else. About 3 years into our marriage, she started to show attraction to Asian characters in the shows and movies we watched together on our weekly movie nights. At first I brushed it off as a joke, but I realized she was serious about a month ago when we started watching Chicago Med. She joked often of wanting one of the characters, Dr. Choi, to be her doctor so she could feel her up. I laughed along until she insisted we stop watching when Dr. Choi got into a relationship with another doctor. Thinking about it now, throughout our entire relationship, Asian men caught her attention. For the past few years, she's been obsessed with popular K-pop members, joking how she would rather be with Eric Mun and Jimin. Even going as far to say she's disappointed she got stuck with a white man and that our babies aren't as cute. A friend of mine since childhood is Korean and visits us often too. He and my wife have become friends. I always thought she acted weird around him, but I never took it personally until last night. As I was cleaning up dinner, she put the kids to bed and asked to sit down and have a talk about something important. I was hesitant, but agreed. She started it by saying that she didn't feel like our sex life was as fulfilling as it used to be. I was taken aback and asked what I could do to bring her more fulfillment. She suggested we bring in a third person into our sex life. I instantly knew she had someone in mind despite her denying it. After an hour of talking in circles, she revealed she had been having sexual thoughts and urges regarding my childhood friend, and she suggested I watch. I was stunned and told her I didn't want to discuss this anymore and slept in the living room. She took the kids to school this morning and went to help her sister pack as she is moving soon. We haven't spoken since last night and I don't know what to do. I'm sat in the car outside my office writing this. I don't want to go home and see her knowing what she's thinking about. I think I want a divorce as she's clearly no longer the woman I fell in love with, and I suspect she has already acted upon her urges with him. Is that too big of a jump over a sexual fantasy? Edit. Spoke with my friend and my wife after I returned home from work. Edit 2. I've now posted an update. I thank you all very much for the advice and support. To those of you stating this is some fake or fetish post, I'm a grown man distraught over my marriage ending, not a creep on the internet looking for pleasure over my fake wife cheating. I'm also not a 14-year-old girl making up stories to waste people's time. Yikes, OP. Sounds like she's just using your sex life to justify seeing somebody else and basically cheat right before your eyes. I think it's fair to want a divorce. As you said, she's not the person you fell in love with. And if she's already showing attraction to people other than you, openly joking about it, odds are she's already cheated on you. There's truth behind every joke. Sure, some people might be into that sort of thing, but I'm not sure how she approached you is the best way to do it with a partner. There's ways to approach living out fantasies, and that wasn't it. Update post, 8 days later. First of all, I want to thank your community for the support. I'm sorry for the late update. Things have been busy around my house. To fill you in relatively quick, I returned home the night I made the post, and my wife and I were still not speaking. I waited until she was putting the kids to bed to make a call to my friend. I wanted to talk to him alone. I slipped outside and made the call. I told him everything. He told me he was so sorry for me and that my wife's behavior was disgusting. He then confessed to me that a few years into my wife and I's marriage, she, drunk, made a move on him at a mutual friend's party. It began as flirting and my friend was not entertaining it. She kissed him and he left the party early. I asked him why he never told me about it. He said he didn't want to ruin our marriage or something she did while drunk. They never spoke about it and continued as normal friends. Now that a week has passed, I figured out that this party aligns with the start of her strange behavior towards Asian men in media. I thanked him for sharing this with me and hung up. I immediately went inside and confronted my wife. I was officially disgusted with her for pushing a kiss on my friend and suggesting I watch her be with him. I told her exactly how I was feeling and what my friend had told me. My wife admitted she only asked to open our bedroom to him because she has had feelings for him for years and wanted to keep herself from cheating on me. I explained that she already had and wrecked the foundation of our relationship. I told her we were divorcing, not to try and stop me. I was not changing my mind. In the last week, I have been staying with friends and family. She has done nothing but harass me via my number. I'm proud to say I have given her no attention. I see her still while stopping by my house during the day for my kids. They are too young to understand what's going on. As I mentioned in my last post, they attend a daycare schooling program for young children during the summer. As a result, I never spend long in the house and typically leave while taking them there. She won't mention it in front of them, so it hasn't been an issue. I have been seeking out a lawyer for divorce proceedings and looking for an apartment in my kids' school district. I feel freed many of you are right. Our marriage has been dead for a very long time. I'm not sure if I can ever see my friend the same way. I want to start therapy and try to work on it. He's been a very close friend since childhood, and I would hate to lose him. My friends and family have been very supportive. So have most of you on Reddit. You've helped me very much and made me feel valid in my feelings. I thank you all for that. Edit. Thank you all so much for advice on not leaving the house. I will be returning to spending nights there immediately. I didn't want to risk losing my kids. Here are some relevant comments. First up, get back to the house immediately, as it could be seen as you abandoning the kids and the house. The OP replies, thank you for telling me this. I only do not sleep at the house. I go while my kids are there and leave while they're gone and spend the nights away. The home is owned by my wife's parents, so she is not leaving. I am there every day. Their daycare schooling program has those who drop off their children sign them in with both the child's name and yours. This is proof I have been seeing my kids for the last week and driving them there. I have this and many photos of my children from this past week. The situation is extremely temporary as I now have a move-in date for an apartment nearby. Does this all work well for me? I really doubt she will fight me on custody at all in the brief conversations we've had she brought up our kids and what to do. We seem to agree 50-50 is the correct thing. Fetish. The OP says, I'm replying to comments regarding legal help or advice about what to do with my wife and kids. I'm not replying to comments about her having a fetish. I think you're all correct about that, but it is not my focus in any way. I'm worried about my children. I mean, nothing is impossible. You didn't marry your wife thinking she was going to cheat on you or yearn for your best friend. So you have to prepare for the worst when it comes to divorcing your kids. The faster you move, the better. I'm sorry your wife isn't who you thought she was, OP. You're making all the right moves and didn't deserve any of this, OP. Wishing you all the best. Hope everything works out for you and your kids. What do you make of this? Do you have a similar story? Let us know in the comments below. Meanwhile, next up, make sure you're going where you say you're going. There's eyes everywhere. Should I tell my ex's friend that she's staying with what she did to me? My girlfriend recently lied to me about going to a male coworker's house, and after I was the only one to try to work things out between us, she chose to leave me and spread lies as to why we broke up to her sister and her friend who she is staying with. This is all the week after we signed a 2-year lease on an apartment. My question is this: should I let her friend that she is staying with know what she did to me? I feel as if it is extremely unfair for her to be able to live in a safe space where she is the victim. Meanwhile, I have to marinate in the life that we had built over the last 4 years. Names and locations are changed for obvious reasons. The message to her would go as follows. Ashley equals X, Zoe equals X's sister. Brian, male coworker. My therapist thought it would be a good idea for me to write this out and possibly send it to you, since it is just eating me up day in and day out that you possibly do not know what actually transpired between me and Ashley, since she did not tell Zoe the full truth. I don't expect you to respond. All I would ask is for you to just read what I have to say. On the Thursday that all this occurred, Ashley was training in the Charlotte store for the week in preparation to become the subs team leader at her store in DC. I got a text from her that morning saying that she was going to go up to DC on her day off just to get acclimated with the store. I thought that sounded like a phenomenal idea, so she went, and I came home. After I got comfortable after work, I got another text from her saying that she was going to go over to her coworker April's house after work to go over sub plans with her. I thought it was a tad late for her to be doing that, considering she had to work at 6 a.m. in the Charlotte store, so I didn't think much of it. I was going to turn something on the TV and mindlessly scroll on my phone, but the Apple TV remote was nowhere to be found. Turns out it was on the floor by her nightstand on the charger, so I get her iPad that's on my nightstand and turn on Over the Hedge on Netflix. An hour or so passes from her saying she was going to go to April's, and I wanted to make sure she arrived to her destination safely. So I check her location on Find My iPhone. I noticed she was still sitting in the Wegmans parking lot. So I text her asking her if she was going to go there soon. She said yes, and that Summer was shopping for groceries, so they should be headed out in a minute. Another hour or so passes and I check her location again, just to make sure she wasn't in a ditch, and she's still sitting in the Wegmans parking lot. I text her again asking her if she's going to leave soon, and two things happened immediately after I sent that. A text with a home address from the guy she works with named Brian popped up on her iPad. Ashley called me informing me that she left her phone in her cart at Wegmans, and she drove all the way to April's house and was going to show her a picture of our bearded dragon when she realized that she forgot her phone. At this point, I know something is not adding up, so I'm pretty stale to her on the phone. As soon as we get off the phone, I receive another notification from Brian, this time on Facebook Messenger. It was something along the lines of, "Give me a minute." And the text above that was Ashley stating, "Text me on here." So she knew by my tone of voice that I knew something was potentially up and wanted to switch forms of communication. As she is on the way to the address that he sent her, I text her just telling her how much I love her. She is there for about 45 minutes, then calls me, and it is dead silent in the background. She asked me how my day was. She almost never does that, and asked me if I needed anything on the way home. I said no, and continued to be stale, just as in the earlier conversation. As she left his house, another notification popped up from Brian. It was him stating that, "Everybody's over here, huh?" I can only assume that means that they had a conversation after I got off the phone with her, with something along the lines of, "My boyfriend knows something's up. Text me saying that all of these people are here to cover my tracks." She gets home, just sticks her head in to say hey, and hopped immediately in the shower. I stick my head in and ask her how April was. "Good." How her two kids were. "They were good." What the kids' names were. Then the stuttering and the looking around began. She then stated to me, "I visited my abuelita today," to try to tug at my heartstrings. After that, I stuck my head back out of the shower and was going to wait until she got back out before we discussed this any further, until I looked down and saw soaking wet panties in the clothes she had just removed. I stuck my head back in and asked her how she was going to lie straight to my face after 4 years after everything. She claims that she's not, and she doesn't know what I'm talking about. It goes on, defending herself for about a minute, and I know this term is used heavily in today's day and age. She started gaslighting me by stating she was allowed to have friends, trying to convince me I'm crazy for coming up with these so-called accusations. I eventually say, "Okay, if you were over at April's, you shouldn't have a problem texting her when you get out of the shower, just letting her know that you had a good time, and thanks for having me." She stared right at me for about 15 seconds and then says, "Okay, fine, I was over at Brian's, but I didn't want you to freak out." She has hung out with guy coworkers outside of work before, and I've never had a problem with it. Then she tried to tell me it was due to her past relationships is the reason why she lied to me and gaslit me. She gets out of the shower and she is extremely quiet. I tell her in layman's terms that she has made a mistake, but I still want to work through this because I love her so much. She tells me that she's been depressed the past couple of weeks, and I ask her if there is anything I can do to help her get better, and she says no. We go to bed, and we are extremely distant the next 36 hours. It's just me grasping at straws, trying to convince her that everything can be okay between us, and we can work this out. I meet her during her lunch break that Saturday to say that once again, and she tells me she felt like 12 years old Ashley again when I yelled at her. Later that day, she texts me saying that she's going to go pack a bag for your house for a couple of days when she gets back. She gets home, I keep as much distance as I can with her, and she heads to Roanoke. It just felt like I was fighting a losing battle at this point, so I text her the next day and ask her if we are done, and she says yes. The OP has some more to say in the replies. The OP states, "Zoe calls me 2 days later and asks for my side, stating that she has not heard anything from Ashley yet. I explained to her everything that I have explained to you thus far, and she is extremely sympathetic, which at this point, she is the only person in the world who even asked me if I was okay, so it meant the absolute world to me. She tells me she will let me know if she hears anything from Ashley." A couple of days later, she calls me again stating that she had gotten in touch with Ashley and had told a very different story from what I had told her. She stated that Ashley had told her that I yelled at her for hanging out with her friends, and that once you yell at her, she is done with the relationship. She also claimed that I was still actively surveilling her iPad and monitoring her messages, when at that point, she had it at your apartment, and I have never logged into any of her accounts to read her messages, ever. The only reason why I found out about this situation was because I was watching Netflix on her iPad. Upon learning this information, I still not informed Ashley of my newfound knowledge of her trying to slander my name, just because I still, for whatever reason, had hope of us getting back together. We were texting back and forth like nothing was going on, and we even met for lunch and went to the mall together. I texted her telling her how hard this has been for me, and she told me that she has hard days sometimes too. All of the pent-up frustration from her betraying my trust, trying to make me look crazy, then telling Zoe, and possibly you, a completely false recollection of events regarding our breakup, and me not saying a word to her about it to spare her feelings, came to a boiling point. I told her everything that I was aware of. I told her that I wanted all of her stuff out of the basement by that Friday. Most importantly, the daily tasks that I had taken over from her when she left. Bearded dragon, leopard gecko, plants, fish, and she obliged. I went to a friend's for the weekend and came home to 75% of all of her items still there, including all of the daily tasks, excluding the bearded dragon. Every day I have to go to sleep in a room, which right outside of it, I have to be reminded of all the pain from what has occurred, while she was able to just run away from it all. She says she's going to come pick up the rest next Thursday. I cannot tell you as to why that it bothers me so much day in and day out that you potentially have heard a different story completely from her, just because she wanted to create a safe space for her. I even had the decency to not tell my parents what happened, just so she wouldn't feel embarrassed coming and getting her items. She unfriended all of my family on Facebook and hasn't even thanked either my mom or my dad for letting her stay there the past 4 years. If you've gotten this far, you have no clue the peace it brings me that you have at least heard my side of things. It is the most frustrating thing in the world being portrayed by someone you trusted more than anyone on this planet as an a-hole, especially regarding what actually occurred. Everything I have stated is objectively the truth, and I hope Ashley comes to terms with what happened as well. It's really hard to cheat with technology these days, so why do they even bother? I mean, it's kind of hard to tell someone you're doing one thing when your location tells them you're doing something else. And of course, there's the underwear. I'm so sorry, OP. One thing for sure, she's bashing your name because she knows that she messed up. She has to try to run your name through the dirt to make herself look and feel better. What do you think? Why do you think cheaters even try to cheat with the technology we have available to us now? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.